Hey guys, welcome back. This is a story about what if Naruto went to the world of One Piece. Naruto's age has paid him by as his time is over now. He attempts to seek out a place for himself in the new world and it's bigger than he ever figured it to be. Will be epic in the length. Before we start, thank you for all of the support. It really means a lot to me. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and leave a like. You can suggest a Naruto fanfiction with a link in the comments if you want me to read it, and check the description for the creator of this great fanfic and support them for making this fanfic. So let's start. Chapter 4. Nobody's side but my own. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto or One Piece. If I did, my home would be a combination houseboat tricked out like a pirate ship, dojo on the inside, and I would sail up and down the east coast in a Chunin flak jacket and a headband with a dollar sign on it, so can't act like I ain't got money. Get up on it. Chapter 4. Nobody's side but my own. Arlong looked long and hard at the expression on Naruto's face. Who do you think you are, Uzumaki? You're out of your element here, boy. Naruto shook his head slowly. No, I'm actually right in my element. I was born for this kind of thing. He looked around at the mermen standing between him and Arlong. You might want to tell your gophers to get out of my way before they lose a limb. I have no problems killing every last one of them to get to you. Arlong laughed loudly. You have quite a bit of courage for a puny human. Boys, show him what courage gets you around here. Give him the treatment we gave the last two losers that came in here. The mermen all began to slowly move in on Naruto threateningly, pulling out flintlock pistols and blades. Johnny and Yosaku watched as Naruto simply stood in place while the mermen drew ever closer to him. Yosaku turned to his sunglasses-clad friend. What do we do, Johnny? Naruto Aniki is in real trouble. The villagers all stood behind them and the cage bunshin Naruto posted to keep them out, crying out to let them in to help him fight, but they simply stood in place. Nojiko ran up to the front and looked one of the clones in the eye. Let us in. He's all alone in there, he needs help. The clone smiled at her and placed its hand on her cheek, stroking it in a calming fashion. Calm down, Nojiko-chan. Boss wouldn't have done this if he didn't know what he was doing. He just doesn't want any of you to get hurt, that's all. Nojiko snapped out of the trance that the clone's hand had put her in, and he's going to let himself get killed all alone because he doesn't want us to fight and get hurt. The clones all started to laugh a bit. No, he's not worried about the mermen hurting you all. He's worried about him hurting you himself. He doesn't want any of you to get in the way while he cleans house of all the small fry. The clones looked up and smiled. Hey, you guys are late, the boss is about to start. Luffy, Usopp, Zoro, and Sanji looked inside past the clones to see Naruto facing down a couple dozen fishmen. Usopp freaked out at that sight. What is he doing? Is he insane? A little bit. Was the admittance of Naruto's clone. Yeah, boss is crazy, but we're the best kind of crazy. Sanji pulled the cigarette from his mouth. What kind is that? The clones all grinned fairly, the unpredictable kind. By the way, you might want to get out of the way of the gate. Naruto started flying through hand seals at a rapid pace, confusing the mermen who had never seen such a thing before. Naruto eventually stopped and held one of the seals. I hate Suiten ninjutsu, so many damn hand seals. Suiten. Daibakufu no Jutsu, water release. Great waterfall technique. Upon hearing the name of the technique, Arlong started to laugh uncontrollably. You think you can make a waterfall? What an idiot. Naruto simply kept a straight face until he heard a noise sounding like swelling water growing louder and louder. A smirk appeared on his face as suddenly a massive wave came spilling over the main gate of Arlong Park that the ships were to come through. The mermen watched in horror as they were hit with the full force of Naruto's tidal wave caused by his jutsu. The torrent of water crashed around within the gates of the fortress until finally spilling out into the bay, delivering many mermen into the drink. As they all swam to the surface, a few were dead from the blunt force trauma of being hit by a damn tidal wave, but there were a few survivors. Is that all you've got? A little water? Or mermen, you fool? I know. The mermen couldn't hide their shock as they saw Naruto walking on the surface of the water towards them, hands going through more hand seals at a pace that back in his days in the elemental nations could be construed as leisurely. I'm not done yet, we're just getting started. I still have to dispose of you lot once and for all. Suiten. Kippari no Uzumaki, water release, or pool of finality. Naruto kneeled down and placed his palms under the surface of the water. Slowly an eddy began to form that began spinning the mermen. As they tried to swim away they found that the pull of the whirlpool was getting stronger and stronger before finally the depth of the whirlpool was deep and massive. The mermen were all sucked to the bottom of the attack when Naruto finally pulled his hands up. There was a trail of water leading from his hands to the surface, before he finally clenched his fists and broke the link between him and the whirlpool. The water then imploded sharply, leaving no sign of any of the mermen that were just a moment ago on the surface. The water settled and returned to its normal state. Naruto turned and started making his way back inside of Arlong Park via the waterway, whistling to himself the entire way. Everyone watching him dispose of the mermen were all wide-eyed at the display out in the water. Luffy snapped his hand out to point at Naruto. Naruto is awesome. He's not the ship's hobo, he's like a super hobo. The villagers watched Naruto stride slowly back into Arlong's base as water poured from the east gate entrance, draining Naruto's first jutsu that started the fight. Who is this guy? He can beat up Arlong's men so easily and go right back for more. He can walk on the water and cause whirlpools and you're thinking about him beating Arlong's men. He must be some kind of lord of the seas or something. The clones stood steadily in front of the gate after the rest of the water drained. Genzo stepped forward. Why? What is the reason that you are risking your life in this fight? Why is this so important to you? The clones gave him a stone glare. That bastard made Nami cry. I will never let those close to me suffer ever again now that I truly have the power to do something about it. If you have a better reason for me to want to get involved then please by all means share it with me and I'll make sure the boss gets the message. Arlong growled as he watched Naruto re-enter his facility carelessly. Hachi, call our little pet to deal with him. Hachi, or Hachin, an octopus fishman, stepped forward. Come on out my powerful monster. Momu. I've got an extra snack for you today. Naruto turned around as he saw something coming towards him, barely submerged under the water. Eventually it emerged in front of Naruto, a massive cow-like sea-dwelling creature. Naruto raised an eyebrow as it towered over him, looking down angrily. Naruto's lips quirked before he yelled out to Sanji, hey chef boy, so if I kill and eat this thing would that make it beef or seafood? Sanji shrugged, I don't know, I was actually wondering that myself. Why don't you try it and I'll find out? Luffy pointed at Momu, hey. We beat that thing up when we first got here. Naruto watched the monster cower somewhat at the sound of Luffy's voice, you're scared of Luffy. Then you really don't want to fight me. Tell you what, since you're more like their pet I'll let you go just stay out of my way. Momu looked at a grinning Luffy, then at a grinning Naruto. Luffy, Naruto, Luffy, Naruto. It finally turned around to head back out of the base deeming discretion is the better part of valor. Naruto's grin never slipped, good choice. Momu what are you doing? Arlong's voice stopped the creature cold in the water, okay, if you really want to go I won't stop you. Just go Momu. He spoke in a threatening tone. The monster suddenly turned on Naruto with intent to kill. Moo. Naruto shook his head with a frown on his face as the sea cow bared down on him. You picked the wrong side to be afraid of my friend. The sea cow launched at Naruto and dove at him in an attempt to devour Naruto in one bite. Arlong laughed as he watched his pet dive onto Naruto's body. Nojiko watched the massive sea creature seemingly devour Naruto in one bite in horror. He had been the first person she had met from outside of the island that had been ready and willing to fight for them. No en Naruto-kun, tears started to fill her eyes. The clones watching her break down frowned. Nojiko-chan stop crying, please. It's okay. She looked up at them with teary eyes, how can it be okay? He just got eaten by that monster. The clones shook their head, if he was eaten then we would have been dispelled. He's not dead, he's just milking it. Look underneath Nojiko-chan. Nojiko blinked her tears away, what? The sea cow surfaced, looking around in a confused fashion. It hadn't tasted anything other than water so where did the human go? In the immortal words of my old sensei, you really shouldn't let your opponent get behind you all the time. Naruto stood behind the sea cow with an evil grin on his face and his right hand with a spiraling blue orb of power in it. Ahem. Kanahagakure Hiden Taijutsu Ugi. Senin Garashi. Sano Rasengan Hidden Leaf Village Ultimate Hidden Taijutsu. 1000 Years of Death, Rasengan Style. Naruto shoved the blue ball where the sun doesn't shine, though it was unknown how he was able to do it to a fish. Thinking about it simply gave people terrors, so they stopped wondering it. The Rasengan carved into the massive Seiko's backside, forcing it to cry out in massive pain as Naruto sent Momu flying into the air at Arlong Park, knocking out the very top of the tower with its body and having it continue on into the distance. The rubble from the tower fell down and actually crushed a few mermen to death. Naruto simply stood on the water looking at his destruction with a somewhat pleased look on his face. Are you done throwing the weaklings at me yet, or did I kill them all? I can do this all day Arlong. Who is this boy? What kind of powers are these? I don't know of any Akuma no Mi that grants such immense power in combat. Genzo watched Naruto utterly decimate the majority of Arlong's forces with little actual effort whatsoever. Clones all shook their head. No Akuma no Mi. What is it with you people thinking that a stupid fruit gave boss that power? You couldn't be any further from the truth on that front. Zoro looked at the clones. Well then, how did he get it? I've never seen anyone do anything like this in my entire life. How can anyone be as strong as to manipulate the sea itself? The clones grinned. Good old-fashioned hard work is all I can say. Countless years of effort went into our training to hone our skills in order to fight foes far beyond our capacity. Zoro shook his head in disbelief. There's no way that any amount of training could get anyone to be able to make a tidal wave at will. What could you have possibly been doing to develop that kind of skill? You can't be any older than 18 years old. Naruto's clone had an amused look on his face. You'd be surprised. And yes, I did learn how to do that in the first 18 years of my life. That's a simple move compared to some of the other things I can do. Arlong growled at Naruto. Chew. Hachi. Kurubi. Kill this idiot already. Naruto finally stepped on land and looked around at the havoc he had caused. You should have just let things go as they were Arlong. If you had let Nami leave and gather the rest of her money, I might have honored the village's request to leave you alone. Now I have to crush you. You brought this to yourself. Chu, a merman in a blue vest and brown pants, walked forward at Arlong's request. You can't beat us. We're not weak like the rest of the crew, we're Arlong's elites. Chu inhaled and spit a shot of water at Naruto, who dodged easily. Thinking it was just a fluke, he fired again. Once again Naruto effortlessly dodged. Chu got a tick mark on his head and began firing rapid-fire shots of water at the troubling opponent. Naruto had his eyes closed as he moved around the speedy projectiles. Slow, 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 you're also slow. Naruto finished with delivering a heavy blow to Chu's ribs, doubling him over and forcing him to spit out all of the water in his body. Naruto grabbed Chu by his face and headbutted him, cracking his skull if nothing else by evidence of the blood that began to pour from his hairline, and threw him aside. He crossed his arms in front of the rest of the fishmen. Anyone else want to get maimed before I kill Arlong? Kurubi growled at the arrogant human. Hachi, if we attack him together he can't win against us. He's just one boy. Hachin nodded and drew 6 swords for each of his arms. Got it. He can't beat us together. He rushed at Naruto swinging wildly. Takoishi Kaiken, octopus foot miracle swords. Kurubi followed suit, rushing in with his hand cocked in a karate stance. Hyakumegawara Seiken, 100-tile true punch. They both made contact with Naruto as he burst into smoke. Out of the smoke flew a log that had been utterly splintered and obliterated by the assault of the fishmen. Kurubi and Hachin looked around for any sign of the boy. Where are you, cowardly? Come and fight. I'm a coward because I won't stand still and take your attack head on like some kind of brain-dead monkey. His voice sounded out all across the area. The thing you need to realize, and you already should have seen as how you're both pirates, is that I don't have to fight fair. The sound of some kind of metal instrument whipping through the air rang out from somewhere. Hachin saw it coming and moved in front of Kurubi to block it with his blades. However, before it got close it burst into smoke, and out of the smoke came a rapidly spinning and flipping Naruto, who got past Hachin's protection and kicked him right in the jaw. I just have to win. Naruto let Hachin fall to the ground as Kurubi started assaulting Naruto with his fists and feet. I've been waiting for this ever since you showed up in our territory. Naruto dodged and blocked easily enough, keeping himself from countering the blows. You've been waiting for me to get pissed off enough to come inside of Arlong Park and kick all of your asses. What a coincidence, I have too. Kurubi growled and threw a punch at Naruto, who simply stood still and caught the punch in his teeth. He bit into Kurubi's hand, causing the fishman to cry out in pain as Naruto took out a chunk of his fist. Naruto ignored his cries of pain and chewed before spitting it out. He scraped his tongue with his hands. Blah, gross. I've wanted to try that since I was little and saw a guy like you. I now have to say that you mermen tastes like crap. You have to be the cheapest seafood ever. Kurubi looked at Naruto murderously. I have had enough of you. This ends now. Naruto smirked. I agree, what is this again? Kurubi set himself in a traditional stance. This is the true essence of fishman karate. This punch can shatter 1,000 stone tiles and will be more than enough to obliterate a lowly human like you. Senmeguara Seiken, 1,000 tile true punch. He came to Naruto with a renewed speed and thrust his fist out with more intensity than any other attack. However, Naruto simply ended up standing on his outstretched fist. That's much better, but still, Naruto reared his foot back, too slow. Naruto proceeded to punt Kurubi in the head, snapping his neck and sending his head hanging backwards limply. Naruto jumped off of the deceased fishman's arm and allowed him to fall back, dead. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Geez. Maybe I kicked him too hard. He looked back where he saw Hachian standing back up glaring at Naruto. You killed him. Naruto shrugged. It was either him or me, and I value my life much more than I value any of yours. You guys are simply in the wrong place, at the wrong time. Hachian pointed all of his swords at Naruto. I won't forgive you. Naruto sighed. I really should have let Zoro fight you. He would be having a ball right now. Hachian's eyes widened. Zoro. Roronoa Zoro. Where? He was looking around rapidly for the man that had fooled him earlier. Naruto reached into his pack and flung a kunai at the merman. Hachian saw it coming and dodged it. I'm not falling for that again. However, a shadow appeared above him that was expanding rapidly. Dynamic entry. Naruto drilled Hachian with a kick in face that sent him into the concrete ground, cracking it and leaving a crater. Naruto stood up straight with a big grin and delivered a thumbs up, teeth shimmering. Woo yeah. Guy sensei, check out my eternal youth. Naruto stopped and slapped himself across the face hard enough to draw blood from his mouth. I will never do that again. Nojiko watched the battle in awe. He's amazing, he just beat Arlong's entire crew without a hand being laid on him. And he told us the whole time that he was entirely capable of it. I thought he was just full of it, but he never seemed overconfident when he said it. Luffy grinned while he watched Naruto fight. He had to be the strongest person he had ever seen. At first he was upset seeing as how Naruto had come in and commandeered the entire fight, but right now he didn't care as long as someone was doing it. Nojiko smiled. I believe in him. I regret ever doubting him. This fight is giving everyone a new hope. Naruto took a moment to look around at Arlong Park. What once was a pretty scenic little place was now mostly rubble. The walls were crumbling, there were bodies strewn all about. Naruto had destroyed the little pool that led to the ocean. The only thing that was pretty much still standing was the main tower itself that Arlong was still sitting under. Man, I fucked this place all up. Do pirates have insurance? Arlong was seeing red as he watched how Naruto was carelessly destroying his men, some random human that walked in out of the blue one day and turned his empire upside down in a matter of hours. He stood up and stared at Naruto down. I'll tell you what. If you surrender now, I will spare the lives of every one of the villagers of Kokoyashi village. However, if you fight me, I will kill every last human from that wretched village. I will not spare any man, woman, or child, except my dear Nami, of course. I still need her to make her wonderful maps for me. No matter which you choose, I am going to kill you. You have caused far too much trouble for me, but you can at least spare the lives of all of the others. Naruto shook his head. How can you still believe that you have a chance? I've killed pretty much everyone loyal to you, so even if you do get rid of me, then what will you do after that? You're the captain of nothing. You have no way to actually enforce your rule over anything because you have no muscle. But even so, I already promised to kill you for the senseless pain you've caused this village and Nami-chan. You can simply save me the time and carve out your own heart now to skip the painful part where I have to butcher yourself if it would make you feel any better. Arlong bared his sharp teeth at Naruto. I'm a cut above the rest of these fools. Do you want to know why I'm here in the East Blue? Because Jinbei kicked me out of the Sunny Pirates for being too dangerous. Naruto grinned darkly. If you were weak enough to allow yourself to be kicked out, then you're obviously not that strong, are you? He looked at Arlong and laughed. You have no idea what power is. You're just a big fish in a small pond, literally. Your plan to kill everyone else has one massive gap in it. In order to do that, you need to kill me first, and I'm sure you'll find that to be as impossible as looking both left and right at the same time. Naruto then made a cage bunshin and made it look left while he looked the other way, but of course nothing is impossible for me unlike you. Arlong growled and grabbed a handful of water before throwing it at Naruto's cage bunshin, dispelling it and getting a frown from Naruto. Now that wasn't nice. But you should know something very important before we fight Arlong. Arlong picked up another handful and threw it at Naruto. The ball hit him as he burst into smoke. Right then, Arlong got drilled in the face with a punch that sent him flying through the bottom floor wall of his tower. Naruto cracked his knuckles and walked towards the hole in the wall. I never make just one cage bunshin. Nami came upon the scene of the rest of the villagers watching something inside of the walls of Arlong Park. There were people crowding the gate and people climbing on top of the wall to look inside at what was going on. Nami slowly came forward. What's going on? The villagers turned with excitement in their eyes. Nami, the guy that you brought to the island is destroying the Arlong pirates. He's just beaten every last one of them. Nami ran ahead of them all. What? Really? She reached the front where she saw her sister looking in awe. Is he really? Nojiko nodded. Yes. He just walked in and started fighting. They haven't been able to lay a hand on him thus far. She wiped her eyes. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Where was Naruto-kun years ago? If only he could have come sooner. Nami. The girl in question looked to where she saw Luffy sitting on the wall with a huge grin. It looks like you aren't a part of Arlong's crew anymore, Nami. So how would you like to come with us? Nami's eyes widened. Even after all of this, Luffy still wanted her on his crew. She opened her mouth to speak but couldn't. Luffy turned back towards the fight. You don't have to answer right now. Naruto's still busy fighting for you and I want to see what he can do firsthand so we can wait for your answer. Nojiko smiled at Luffy's words. You really have found some great people, Nami. Arlong stepped out of the rubble of his building and towered over Naruto, who had been walking towards him. He opened his mouth as teeth fell out onto the ground. Immediately, replacements took their place. Naruto smirked. It's good to know that you can do that, because you're going to be losing a lot of those before I'm done with you here. Arlong started snapping his teeth at Naruto, who dodged before punching Arlong in the mouth, forcing him to lose even more teeth from the impact. Arlong quickly regrew his teeth. You weak humans. How dare you? Mermen are naturally stronger and more superior to you filthy mongrels. Naruto picked shards of Arlong's teeth out of his fist. Right, I'm a mongrel and you're the one that's half fish, half man. Your logic is infallible. Arlong pulled out 2 pairs of his own teeth and held them in his hands before using them as weapons against Naruto. One of Arlong's missed attacks hit a fallen pillar and took a chunk out of the stone. Naruto drew a kunai and blocked it with one hand while forming a hand seal with the other. A cage bunshin puffed into existence and punched Arlong into the face before dispelling and allowing Naruto to stab Arlong in the shoulder up to the hilt. Naruto flipped away from the melee with a smirk on his face once more. Did that hurt? Good. I'm not even close to being done with you yet, you piece of crap. Arlong grunted and pulled the blade out of his shoulder. This isn't going to come even close to killing me, punk. He threw it aside and rushed Naruto down once again with his teeth weapons. Naruto dueled him using his kunai and eventually broke his guard. He took advantage of this by delivering a kick to Arlong's ribs that sent him flying into the water. Naruto sighed as Arlong didn't immediately surface. Naruto simply walked over to the face of the water and crouched down, staring into the blue water with a blank glance. Naruto eventually quirked his eye as Arlong sure had been taking a long time down there. It wasn't like he himself was going to go into the water with him. It might make the fight more fun, but he wasn't here to have a fun fight. No, he was here to humiliate Arlong and then kill him in a way that no one that would see it would ever forget. With this in mind, Naruto pressed his hands together before forcing enough space between them to form a Rasengan. Right as he finished the blue orb, he saw Arlong's fin sticking out of the water, speeding towards him. Naruto grinned and suddenly the Rasengan ended up having a sharp wind whipping around it. Arlong burst from the water shooting at Naruto extremely fast, leading with his nose, Shaku on Datsu, shark on darts. Naruto thrusted the Rasengan out with both hands. Fudden, Rasengan, wind release, spiraling sphere. Naruto's Rasengan collided with Arlong's sharp nose, there was no contest. The attacks were heavily mismatched. Arlong's attack was based off of simple physics. The combination of the natural hardness of Arlong's nose along with the momentum generated by him swimming top speed and launching at his opponent like a torpedo was impressive. However, Naruto's Futon Rasengan was pure energy condensed down to the size of a baseball with all of the power of a drill from each side of it. In addition to that, he added his own natural chakra, wind, the cutting element. Arlong was lucky that his nose was as strong as steel, allowing him to bounce off of the Rasengan so quickly, or else he would have been missing his entire skull. Fortunately for him, he didn't lose that much. Got my nose. Arlong stood up with deep bloody cuts all over his face and the top half of his body. His shirt, needless to say, was shredded. The tattoo on his chest was completely unnoticeable due to the incredible amount of damage his upper body had taken. Blood was pouring down his entire body. He removed his hands from his face to reveal that Naruto had ripped his saw nose off at its base. Arlong's blood poured from where his nose had been severed from his face. You filthy worthless human. I'll kill you, you son of a bitch. I'll kill every last one of you weak humans. I'll tear you all asunder. Naruto went to clean out his ear until he realized that his hands were all bloody from carving up Arlong with his Rasengan. I'm actually surprised that you survived that. I guess out of all of the wimps in the East Blue, you're the least wimpy. Be proud of yourself. You're the only person I've ever hit with that directly that didn't die on contact, though I guess that nose of yours was good for something after all. Arlong slowly walked towards Naruto, dead set on ripping him in half if it was the last thing that he ever did. Naruto chuckled darkly as he strode out to meet Arlong head on. You still have some fight left in you. You're not a coward, I can admit that. You're still a dead man though. Arlong yelled as he launched a punch at Naruto. Naruto caught his punch in his hand and pulled him in to deliver another punch that sent Arlong flying into the wall of his tower. Naruto called out to him, "Are we done yet?" His response was Arlong bursting from the walls with a long sword in his hands, a massive blade, saw-like, much like his nose. Naruto shrugged. Okay, if that's how you want to play, then that's cool with me. Naruto pulled out a sealing scroll and wiped some of Arlong's blood from his hands onto it before it shrouded him in a puff of smoke. You think that sword is shark-like? The smoke cleared to reveal Naruto resting a massive sword on his shoulder. The blade was totally wrapped down. Come on down then. Arlong charged him and swung his blade at Naruto, who pulled the wrapping off of the top of the sword and clashed with Arlong's blade. The merman's eyes widened at the appearance of the weapon. It looked to be completely covered in scales. What kind of freaky sword is this? Johnny, Yosaku, and Zoro watched Naruto's actions with interest. Johnny pointed out to Naruto, Naruto Aniki is a swordsman. Zoro Aniki, why didn't you tell us about that? Zoro shook his head. I didn't know. I've never even seen him use that before. What kind of sword is that anyway? I've never seen anything like that in my entire life. Naruto grinned. Allow me to introduce a weapon I obtained a long time ago. Samahata. And in the words of the guy that used to wield this thing, it doesn't cut. Naruto swatted Arlong's blade away and slashed the weapon down across his shoulder and chest. It shreds. Naruto dragged it down and watched it carve into Arlong's chest deeply with the jagged scales. Naruto swung the blade again, this time catching Arlong crossways in the torso. As he cut into him, he sent him flying once more into the top floor of his tower. Naruto jumped up inside of the mess he had made during the fight and looked around at a room filled with maps and sketches of other cartography-related things. What room is this? As if he didn't already know. Arlong picked himself up using his sword as support. This is the room where I keep the maps that Nami has spent 8 years writing. It isn't difficult for a merman to research navigation, but it's so hard to find a good navigator. Out of all of the people I've sought out around the world, there is no one that can write a map as accurately as her. She's really quite talented. He pointed his blade at Naruto. I won't allow anyone else to use Nami's talents except for me. Naruto held Samahata over his shoulder. Use. What the fuck do you think she is? Just a tool to you. Arlong spit blood onto the ground. She is the best navigator I've ever seen. Despite being of your puny species, she's also a tricky little one. I plan to keep Nami in this room writing my maps until she dies. If she needs food, I will get it for her. If she wants any dress, I will buy it for her. I will give her anything she wants as long as I can keep getting these maps from her. He gave Naruto a bloody evil grin, because we are friends. Naruto frowned as he looked around and set Samahata to the side before making a few hand seals and putting his fingers to his lips. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu, Fire Release. Great Fireball Jutsu. Naruto immediately set fire to the nearest desk with maps stacked on top of it. Arlong's eyes bulged out. What do you think you're doing? Arlong moved to stop him. Stop now. He found Naruto's fist buried right in his belly. No, he choked out weakly. My maps. Naruto sunk his fist into Arlong's body up to his wrist. You made her write maps for you for 8 years. You took a little girl's mother away from her and ripped her away from her sister and village for a few goddamn maps. Arlong desperately sunk his teeth into Naruto's neck to kill him. However, Naruto barely flinched as the blood ran down his neck. I need to destroy this place. I need to destroy anything that links Nami to you and your despicable acts to let her move on. Arlong spoke as he stayed latched onto Naruto's neck. I am Arlong, the strongest pirate in the East Blue. There's no way that a human like you can defeat me, I won't accept it. Naruto gave Arlong a chilling smile. You don't have to accept your death to die. By all means, haunt me when you're gone. You won't be the first dead face to stick in my dreams. Naruto pushed Arlong off of him, ignoring the blood from his neck shoulder wound running down his sage coat. Arlong snarled and ran at Naruto before jumping at him while rotating wildly with his teeth open. Shaku on Tusu, shark on tooth. Naruto formed a Kage Bunshin and held out his hand with a Rasengan in it as the Kage Bunshin formed a Rasengan, forcing it to grow even bigger. Naruto waited until Arlong got right within range before slamming it right into the back of Arlong's head. Odama Rasengan, Great Ball Spiraling Sphere. Naruto's attack drilled Arlong through the floor and Naruto powered him through each and every floor, sending him all the way to the ground floor. Everyone watched as the top floor caught ablaze. Nami gasped, knowing immediately which room this was. Countless flaming papers began floating down from the building. As they began to land, tears started to fill Nami's eyes. Thank you, Naruto. With a loud and violent crash, finally the entire building came down as the floors folded in on themselves, sending floor after floor collapsing to the ground. Smoke and debris flew from the destroyed building and obscured the scene of the wreckage from view. Naruto, Naruto-kun, Naruto Aniki. Everyone that had known this man in some way yelled for him as they all ran inside of Arlong Park to search for him. Genzo looked around with his police hat covering his face. There is no way that any human could have survived that, no matter how tough they are. The villagers were all watching with shocked expressions. Arlong Park has fallen, but where are Arlong and the other guy? Nami ran into the rubble. Naruto-kun. Ow! A pile of rubble pushed up revealing a quite filthy Uzumaki Naruto with a perturbed look on his face. My coat. Shima is going to kill me when I send this back to her. Naruto walked over to some place and reached into it, pulling up his sword. I'm sorry, Samahata. I didn't mean for you to get caught in rubble. Here, eat up as an apology. Naruto generated chakra into the blade as it purred in satisfaction. Naruto grinned. Until next time then. He then resealed it into his scroll. Naruto. Naruto looked at Luffy who had a massive grin on his face. You won. You stomped that stupid fish. Naruto smirked. Oh yeah, I'm fine. He then pointed over to a random pile of rubble. He's assuredly not. Naruto walked over a decent ways and kicked away chunks of concrete, wood, and plaster to reveal the remains of Arlong. After moving more rubble he scratched his head. Well, I can't rip his heart out seeing as how I pretty much pulverized the top half of his body. He placed his hand up as people started walking over. Man, that was overkill, you really don't want to see this. Nami walked over anyway and looked at the mangled corpse of Arlong. There was nothing above his waist. All of it was just a bloody smear on the ground. The Odama Rasengan had pretty much turned him into fishman paste where it had hit, and the fact that Naruto had drilled him at least several stories into the ground with it didn't hurt either. Naruto noticed that Nami couldn't tear her eyes away from Arlong's body, so he formed a few hand seals and placed his fingers by his lips. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. Naruto incinerated Arlong's body to simply get rid of him. As she saw Arlong's body go up in flames, she turned to Naruto and gave him a tearful smile. Thank you so much, Naruto-kun. She threw her arms around him gratefully. Naruto simply held her and let her cry on his shoulder. Arlong Park has been destroyed. A massive cheer went up from the villagers at the sight of the symbol of their oppression being eradicated. However, their mirth was cut short. Stop right there. Everyone turned to see a man in a Marine's uniform that looked like a rat with men flanking him entirely. This is my lucky day, isn't it? I came to watch an interesting fight from beginning to end. No one will ever believe that an unknown boy like you would be able to defeat Arlong, or that you have any of the strength necessary to tear this place down on your own. Because of you, boy, every single belly of Arlong will be mine. Drop your weapons. I, Commander Nezumi of Unit 16, will be happy to accept all of the treasure. Naruto tensed up in Nami's arms. This she noticed. Naruto-kun. Naruto got her to let go of him so that he could turn to face Nezumi with the blankest of faces. Your Commander Nezumi. The man nodded proudly. Naruto nodded in understanding, and all of the rest of you are his men and you knew full well what he was doing the entire time. The Marines all nodded but were confused. What was this kid getting at asking all of this? Futon. Renkuden wind release. Drilling air bullet. The man directly in front of Nezumi exploded and showered him and the surrounding Marines in gore. He screamed in horror. What is the meaning of this? Do you think you can get away with T? He was cut off by a hand being shoved through his chest. Naruto's hand, covered in wind chakra, was sticking out of his back. Naruto looked up at Nezumi with an evil grin. Whoops, my finger slipped. It's just that when someone senselessly harms an innocent woman I can't control it, it's something of a little tick of mine. Nezumi let off a death rattle. You will pay for this. Naruto chuckled. You first. Naruto pulled his arm out with a wet squelch, dropping Nezumi onto the ground, and looked at the horrified Marines. Boo. The Marines all took off running as Luffy and the rest of his crew proceeded to beat them all up before letting them all run off. Naruto looked out and saw a ship in the distance. Counting down from 120, he turned towards it and inhaled deeply, a ring of a shockwave building around his mouth, and just held it until his count was done. Futon. Renkuden wind release. Drilling air bullet. He let out a high-speed projectile of a highly pressurized air ball from his mouth at the ship. The Marines had hightailed it to their boats to row back to their ship. As many of them were climbing aboard, they saw a mass of rippling air flying at them. The ball exploded on contact with the ship's hull, sending tons of refuse and debris flying. Genzo watched the display and gulped in fear. You killed them. Naruto shook his head. No, I killed most of them. I should kill all of them, but I won't. I'm not a monster. Why? Naruto turned towards him and looked back at Nojiko, who blushed at the way he was intently looking at her. Oh, no real reason in particular, I just felt like they needed to die. He smiled and turned to leave. Well, that was a long haul. I killed a bunch of mermen and corrupt military men, pretty good day. He walked back out from the gate towards Kokoyashi village whistling a jaunty tune. 2 days later, the night of Arlong's defeat, a raucous celebration that the whole island partook in was thrown. At the end of it, however, the hero of the day, Naruto, was nowhere to be found. Chalking it up to simple modesty, they let the issue drop and went to bed. The next day, however, found people in shock as they awoke to a mass of cage bunshin carrying materials to Goza village. As they followed the clones, the people almost had a heart attack. Overnight, Naruto and a mass of his cage bunshin had begun to rebuild the village, and they were almost done by daybreak. The crew and Nojiko found the real one, who was pretty much in the center of the town directing traffic. Naruto, what are you doing? Naruto turned to them with a massive grin. Oh, well, I was getting a bit stir-crazy. I mean, all you guys have been doing for days is partying. I wanted to do something productive, so I decided to rebuild this village. Usopp pointed at him. Don't you ever run out of energy? Who does things like this? Naruto grinned at him. Someone that can. Johnny and Yosaku then threw themselves in front of them. Please teach us, Naruto and Ikki. Naruto blinked in surprise at the two men on the ground in front of him. What? Johnny spoke up. You were right, Naruto and Ikki. We are weak. We were completely useless to everyone the entire time. Everyone else is so strong. And our old friend Zoro, it seems as if he has left us in his wake as he gains his own strength. We don't ever want to be as useless as we were when we tried to fight for Nami Ainu again. He raised an eyebrow at the two men. Why me? I'm not really a swordsman specialist. Why not Zoro? He's more familiar with you two, isn't he? Zoro Aniki has a dream that he has to achieve. If we were to go with him now, we would only be in his way. Please. Naruto stared at them silently for the longest time as the sounds of construction rang out around them all. He finally walked past them. Fine, but you two had better be ready to work. I won't have any weaklings training under me. I'll whip you into shape even if it kills you both. Thank you Naruto and Ikki. Naruto walked back to Kokoyashi village. Don't thank me yet. You're going to hate me before long, I guarantee it. The night before Strafut's departure, Naruto sat out by himself. The villagers were still partying a week after Arlong's defeat and he had grown bored of that. His clones had relinquished the rest of the work of rebuilding Goza village to the survivors, saying that it wouldn't be right of him to take the right to rebuild their lives away from them too. He had returned to Arlong Park to peruse over the wreckage for anything of value out of boredom. So here's where you are, I've been looking all over the place for you. Naruto turned around to find Nami smiling at him. You haven't really been around much since the battle. Naruto chuckled as he picked through the mess. This is your home. This is your celebration. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm just passing through. Nami frowned and walked with him as he continued to pick through the refuse. So why did you do all of this for us then? You don't even consider yourself part of the crew. Naruto kept his eyes peeled as he listened to her question. Well, I'm not. I helped you because I can do whatever the hell I want, and it just so happened that I was feeling particularly bloodthirsty that day. That kind of thing happens when someone hurts the people close to me. Nami blinked. You think we're close? Naruto nodded. Well yeah, you're a friend of mine Nami-chan. All you had to do when we got here was ask me to, and I would have blown that place to hell right then and there. But no, you had to drag it out for like 2 days and cut your arm all up to get me to take the decision out of your hands. Actually the decision was out of your hands when that asshole Marine robbed your house and shot Nojiko-chan. Nami cringed. You shoved your hand through his chest. Naruto picked his ear. Yep. Nami walked next to him. Do you think he felt it? Was it painless? Naruto rubbed his head. Oh Kami no, that bastard felt every last second of it until I pulled my arm out. Trust me, getting an arm shoved into your chest fucking sucks. He growled to himself as he looked around. Hey Nami, if Arlong was a pirate then where the fuck is his ship? Don't they need ships to do nautical things? Why else would they be pirates? Nami thought for a moment. Well Arlong's main ship was broken down to build Arlong Park. Naruto pulled at his hair. Again I reiterate, how was he a pirate again with a lack of naval transportation? I think he had a ship graveyard or something on the other side of the island. I never left with them. I always found my own way around so I don't know. Nami shrugged apologetically. Naruto sighed. A graveyard huh? Well it's better than nothing. Maybe I can find a rinky-dink tub to get me far enough to get a proper ship. Nami looked down. So you're really not coming with us? I suspected as much this time. It's because of me right? Naruto grabbed her chin and made her look at him. No Nami-chan, it's nothing because of what you did, I told you already I didn't care about that. Nami looked into his eyes with her mouth slightly ajar. Naruto shrugged to himself and moved in, gently placing his own mouth against hers. After a moment he pulled away. You're sweet Nami-chan. Nami touched her lips with a massive blush on her face. What was that for? Naruto smirked. Well you just looked so cute and confused right then, I had to take my chance. You aren't going to kill me now, are you? Name shook her head with a giggle. No Naruto-kun, it's just no one has ever had the courage to do that to me before. Naruto chuckled. Well honestly I'm still slightly wary that I'm going to catch a staff shot to the testicles because of that. I'm not am I? Nami giggled again and shook her head no, a thank you kiss is the least I owe you for what you've done. Besides, it's not like I didn't enjoy it. She finished under her breath. Naruto walked around Nami who was still standing in place, watching him circle her. But anyway, it's that I can't keep following you guys forever, you all have your own dreams and adventures to go for. This is your story, not mine. I can't just stay with you all doing nothing, I need to find something out here for me. Nami held her hands behind her back. What's your dream Naruto-kun? Naruto smiled. I had a dream, but circumstances that couldn't be helped put it out of my reach. I'm not really bitter about it though. I did everything else that I ever sought out to do, some of those things far more important than my ambition. Nowadays, who knows? I'm just content going around to break my boredom. This is actually the most fun that I've had in years. Nami raised an eyebrow. How old are you? Naruto grinned at her. How old are you? Nami got a tick mark on her head. You don't ask a lady that kind of question, Naruto-kun. Naruto's grin got wider. I'm old enough. I'm legal for you if that's what you're wondering, Nami-chan. He got a decent laugh off of the flustered look on her face. That's all I'm going to say about that. If you can actually guess my real age, I'll give you 100,000 belly. Nami's eyes got dollar signs in them. 19. Naruto started walking back towards Kokoyashi village. Nope. No fair. Nobody knows how old you are. What if I get it and you lie? Nami thought for a moment. 23. Naruto shook his head. Nope. And trust me, I won't lie, because you definitely won't get it anytime soon. 26. Naruto shook his head again. Nope. That's 3 strikes, Nami-chan. You can try again when we meet again. Naruto then shunshined out of her presence. What? Nami pouted and stomped on the ground. That's not fair, Naruto-kun, you never said I had a limit. After bidding the Strafut pirates farewell with the rest of the village, Naruto took Nojiko with him to the north side of the island to find himself a ride off of Kami Island, seeing as how commerce hadn't picked back up and probably wouldn't for quite a while, and water walking all the way to another island probably wasn't the best idea. All the way up there, Nojiko kept sneaking glances at the immortal blonde. He caught her doing it, but let it go. If she wanted to tell him what it was all about, she would. Naruto eventually assisted Nojiko over a small ridge as his eyes widened. What? Ship graveyard, my ass. More like used ship superstore. Apparently Arlong did have decent little stockpile of ships to choose from, as his domination of this region of the East Blue had him taking many ships for years. As Naruto got closer to inspect them, however, he found that while there were many that looked great from afar, a lot of them had fallen into disrepair over time. Naruto frowned as he tested the wood on one of the hulls. Okay, I guess this is a ship graveyard after all. This is no good. These things wouldn't get me 6 miles off of the coast before something breaks, and I'm not good enough to restore these things. Nojiko-chan, do you have any shipwrights on the island? Nojiko shook her head. No, ships were commissioned from afar before Arlong took over. Now we're just waiting for word to spread that Arlong is dead for trade to fully return to the island. Why do you want to leave so quickly for anyway, Naruto-kun? Naruto's face twisted negatively as he kept looking at ships. I did just kill a marine officer. Even I'm not crazy enough to stick around here for retaliation. And even if I was, Kami Island would just get caught in the crossfire. And I'm not destroying this place after it was just freed just so I can fight off some glory-hound marines. Leaving is all that I can do. Nojiko bit her lip. Are you sure you have to go? Maybe you aren't in trouble. You did destroy the ship that was off of the coast before it could get away. Naruto shook his head. No, I didn't kill them all. I just blew the ship up. I'm sure that quite a lot of them survived and made it back to their base. And that's why I need to get off of the island. I'm a sitting duck as I am. He eventually stopped in place, forcing Nojiko to bump into him. What do we have here? Nojiko squinted. It looks like a discarded marine ship. Arlong must have defeated some of them fairly recently. Naruto grinned to himself. Oh yeah, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto created 30 clones and pointed at the marine ship. Go and make sure that thing is usable. I'm certain it is, but when you're done, take it to Arlong Park so we can fix this thing up in private. He got a unanimous cry of, "Hi boss," from his clones as they sprang into action. Nojiko gave him a fake smile as she saw him beaming at possibly getting a ship and a way off of the island. Johnny and Yosaku looked at Naruto excitedly. We have a way out of here, Naruto Aniki. Naruto nodded as Yosaku whooped in joy. Yes. That means we don't have to wait around here to get slaughtered by the Marines. Naruto frowned. What do you mean we? I can beat a Marine's ass, and besides they'd be after me, not you. All you idiots would have to do is pretend you don't know me. Johnny took on a pondering look. I wonder how much your bounty is, Naruto Aniki. Naruto narrowed his eyes at Johnny. Bounties are for pirates. I'm not a pirate. But you. Naruto cut off the argument. I what? Killed a marine officer and a pirate. So what? It's not like pirates are the only ones out there that can kill officers. Besides, that guy was totally weak. He probably would have killed himself bathing in waist-deep water. Johnny and Yosaku let it drop. So is the ship ready yet? Naruto grinned. Yeah, pretty much. All the clones have to do is take all of the shit with the emblem of the Marines off of everything and cover it and we're golden. They repainted the whole damn thing. It looks badass if my clones all thinking the same thing in their memories is anything to go by. Johnny and Yosaku jumped to their feet eagerly. Well, let's go see it then. Naruto smirked. Sure thing, guys. I can't believe it. Johnny's sunglasses had slipped down his face slightly as he simply stared at the ship. Yosaku was much the same way. Sans sunglasses. I know, it's just. Naruto grinned at them widely. I know, it's awesome, right? The ship was a two-mast ship that was basically the exact same size and shape of a regular marine ship, however that's where the similarities ended. Naruto had taken the debris from Arlong Park and had used it to make many training implements to be used on the deck. From human-sized targets used for long-range practice, to simple bullseyes set up near the back of the ship, to 3 7-feet concrete pillars. Apparently Naruto was a decent hand at woodworking because the wheel was in the shape of a spiral with grooves carved into it around the edges for necessary grip. The masts had been painted blue, and let's not forget that the hull of the ship was painted orange, yes orange. Orange with blue trim. Johnny and Yosaku yelled at Naruto, "You painted it orange." Naruto snickered, yes I did. You got a problem with that. I saw a ship that looked like the circus came to town, therefore I painted my ship orange. Why? Naruto raised a finger in a scholarly fashion, because orange is badass. It's an eternal truth. What was I going to do? Leave it blue like the Marines? That's like keeping a big bullseye on our backs. And painting the damn thing orange wasn't. Naruto turned to see Nojiko, who had an amused look on her face as well as arms full of supplies. Where in the world did you get orange paint anyway? Naruto slumped his shoulders. Why is everyone hating on the orange? He then noticed that she had her things packed as well. Nojiko-chan, what's going on? What's with all of the stuff? Nojiko gave him a brilliant smile. I'm coming with you. Naruto's eyes bugged out. I'm sorry Nojiko-chan, I think I just misheard you. Would you mind repeating that for me? Nojiko walked up to him and poked him in the chest. You heard me right. I'm coming with you. There's no way I'm letting Nami go off and have all of the adventures while I sit on this island watching the grass grow. Naruto stammered, but what about your tangerine groves? Nojiko waved off his concern. The villagers will take care of it until I can come back. Anyway, shouldn't you be happy I'm coming? All you have with you otherwise are these two idiots. She pointed at Johnny and Yosaku. Hey. They both said in defense. Naruto scratched the back of his head. Well yeah, but I feel okay putting these two idiots lives in mortal danger. Hey. Naruto and Ikki. Naruto ignored them. I'm going to be doing some stupid things that only I'll be able to get away with because I'm awesome. It's going to be pretty rough Nojiko-chan. I plan on heading to the Grand Line like Luffy's crew is going to. That's where all the action is. The Grand Line. Johnny paled. Naruto and Ikki were not that strong. Naruto grinned at them evilly. I know. What did you think we were going to be doing until we got there and all the way through? Now that Nojiko-chan is apparently coming, I now have double incentive to whip your sorry asses into shape and make you competent. Your asses are mine until further notice. The two bounty hunters gulped. Nojiko looked at him hopefully, so I can come. Naruto nodded at her with a smile. Come on aboard Nojiko-chan. Nojiko squealed happily and sped aboard with all of her things. Naruto sighed and shook his head as he looked at the other two. Get your stuff together and get ready to go. We have places to be getting to. They looked at each other and back at Naruto. Where? Naruto snapped at them. My foot will be getting to the crux of your asses if you both don't move like you're on fire, now. They were both off like a shot. Naruto sighed as he began walking aboard the ship before another presence stopped him. Gen-san. How are you? Have you come to see me off? Genzo stepped up towards the boy. Nice ship. The color could make you go blind though. Naruto had a small storm cloud over his head as he pressed his fingers together. I did my best, I think it looks really cool. It's better than Luffy's ship anyway. Genzo had sharp eyes on Naruto. I tried to keep her from going. I didn't really want her to become a pirate like her sister, but to let Nami go and not let Nojiko go would have made me somewhat hypocritical. Naruto sighed and ran a hand through his blonde locks. I'm not a pirate. I haven't even done anything for AT. Why does everyone call me one? Genzo paid his griping no mind. That girl is like a daughter to me, Uzumaki. Keep her safe and keep her happy. If I find that you have harmed her in any way. Naruto cut him off with a sharp look of his own. That's enough, Gen-san. I would never hurt Nojiko-chan, just like I would never let harm come to Johnny or Yosaku, no matter what I say to them that hints to the contrary. Whatever it is that Nojiko-chan is here for, I'll do my best to make sure she gets it, even if it's just an adventure like Nami-chan is going to have, I can sure as hell do that. Rest assured, she will be fine. He gave the man a smile as he jumped onto the deck of his ship. Take care of yourself, Gen-san. I'll bring her back safe and sound. Naruto disappeared from the deck as Genzo turned to return to the village. She doesn't want an adventure, you blonde fool, she wants something else. An amused look fell onto his face. A god in battle, a fool in life, of course he would be. He let out a bark of laughter as he looked back at the orange ship. Chapter complete. From now on I will not be updating every damn day. It will fall into the rotation of updates with the rest of my stories as was my original intention. So that's how things are going to go in the story from this point. Naruto will still show up for some important parts, but it will pretty much be him on his own with his own crew. As always, any questions, concerns, or the like will be read and taken into account if you so choose to allow me to see. Stay cool, ladies and gentlemen. VK out. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more what ifs and support the author. See you guys in the next video.